My parents were, I guess, middle class. My father was a lawyer. My mother was did not actually work, and I have two brothers and two sisters. I was brought up in a very, very wonderful environment, but after a couple of years, my father was put in jail for political reasons for about 7 years or so. So, although I don't have very good memories of that time, but it must have been very difficult for my mother. After that, after he came out of jail, we had a very nice, I had very fond memories of my childhood. For high school, I went to an American school, actually, in Baghdad, called Baghdad College, that was run by Jesuits from Boston. And so when I learned English, I used to speak with a Boston accent, which was an Irish Boston accent, which was very funny, I think, in retrospect. I entered medical school, and in Iraq, unlike here, the medical school follows the European system, so there were like 6 or 7 years of medical school. And I did very well, and I enjoyed medical school a lot. People who finish medical school, they usually like to have more training in medicine at some or specialization. And many people in Iraq usually went to England to do their training. But I never liked that approach. First, I never liked the English, frankly. And so I was like, they were the people who imprisoned my father. Maybe in retrospect, that is the reason. But I don't think that was it, really. I think mostly it's, they go there and get degrees. And the degrees, they just sit there and take exam after exam until they pass something and come back as specialists. It was not really my idea. And maybe because also I went to an American high school, I was more oriented towards the way medicine is practiced in America. The big problem was really finding a position, and I finally found one. It was called the Chronic Disease Hospital in Baltimore. But it is really more, in reality, it was more like a glorified nursing home. And now I would know that if I would see it, but with euphemisms and whatever, I would never have guessed that from Baghdad. Regardless, it turned out to be the best thing I ever did, because even though it was a terrible position, with a salary that was barely allowed me to survive, really. I think my salary then was like $4,000 a year, which even in 1967, it sounds like a lot in 1967, but it is, I think it may have been at minimum wage, really. It doesn't matter, because I think it was an incredibly lucky position, because this nursing home or chronic disease hospital was associated or literally next door to a hospital which in those days was called Baltimore City Hospital, which was the second hospital of Johns Hopkins University. Very famous people at Johns Hopkins saw something in me. I got incredibly good training. I started working in research. Very early on, I made a spectacular discovery with friends of mine. I became very famous very quickly. We discovered how the disease cholera is brought about. It was an incredibly big discovery in the late 60s and early 70s. And I think that after that, everything was very easy, really. After I stayed at Johns Hopkins for a few years, I then went to Harvard Medical School. One of my friends, acquaintances who worked with me when I was working on cholera, became a very senior person at Columbia University. He invited me to come to Columbia in 1976, and I came in 1977. It was the worst time to come in New York. New York has barely escaped bankruptcy at that time, but I jumped at the opportunity, and I've been at Columbia University since then. It's the past 35 years. So I love being in New York. It's like the only place I feel I've ever felt at home, frankly, including Baghdad, I would say. So I'm really happy being here.